Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Package Tourist, hosted by yours truly, the Package Tourist and the magical mystery tour called life, Matthew DiBiase. Tonight, we have a special guest, pro football historian and author Terence T.J. Troup. TJ is one of the foremost historians of professional football. He has written numerous articles for American Football Coaches Monthly and was the football coordinator and consultant for the 2008 George Clooney film Leatherheads and also the 2021 film 12 Mighty Orphans. He wrote his first book in 2009 titled This Day in Football. 2014, he wrote The Birth of Football's Modern 4-3 Defense. And last year, Coach Troup released 1961, A Sensational Season, where he examined the offenses, defenses, kicking teams, stats, and significant games for all 14 NFL teams and the Houston Oilers and San Diego Chargers in the AFL. But tonight, we will kick off season number 7 of the Package Tourist Show by discussing the mythical Super Bowl F, featuring the 1965 Green Bay Packers versus the 1965 Buffalo Bills. Coach, welcome back to the show. This is a great way to start off a lucky 7th season. I'd like to start off by asking you, let's discuss the coaching matchups. Vince Lombardi of the Green Bay Packers versus Lou Saban of the Buffalo Bills.
Good evening, Matthew.
Yes.
And Happy New Year to everybody out there listening.
Yes.
Well, by this time, 1965, and with Coach Lombardi having beaten Cleveland and is now a champion again, he feels pretty damn good about where he is and where his team is at. So this is an outstanding coach with an excellent coaching staff ready to do battle. While Lou Saban, on the other hand, I mean, his short term in Boston didn't go well. But when he got the Buffalo job, he had such a good eye for player personnel, and it took him a little while, but he got the Bills resurrected, and they were such outstanding champions in '64. And now in '65, after they won on the road against a Charger team where most prognosticators thought they had no chance, the Buffalo Bills are hardened veterans, and they know how to win.
Okay. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills offensive. Let's start with the team. We'll take each team in turn. Let's start off with the Buffalo Bills. Let's go with their offensive backfield of starting quarterback Jack Kemp, backup quarterback Darryl LaMonica, and running backs Ray Carlton and Billy Joe.
Well, the most featured member of the Buffalo Bills is not with them in '65, meaning Carlton Cookie Gilchrist. So the locker room is a little more cohesive. We don't have any of those. We don't have inner turmoil. Let's put it that way. Billy Joe had a fine rookie year for Denver, but he's kind of an unproven commodity. But when you watch film of him, he has got excellent size. He moves well for a big man. He's an excellent blocker. And as he proved in '65, he was actually adequate as a receiver out of the backfield. Ray Carlton is one of those men who is just overlooked. He was rock solid in every facet of the game. And, of course, his teammates just really, really respect him. LaMonica is probably viewed as the best backup quarterback in the AFL, though I'm sure that the Chargers earlier, Hadel had that designation, but now he's the starter. So Darryl LaMonica has got that strong arm, can throw deep. He actually moves fairly well, and he gets to play some. There's not a problem with him being on the field. But the leader of this team, and a man that I have ultimate respect for, is Jack Kemp. A true leader of men, an absolute howitzer of an arm. I coached with a man who was his offensive center at Occidental, and he had some tremendous Jack Kemp stories. And briefly here, I'm going to go to his background. Kemp actually had a cup of coffee in the NFL with a handful of teams. So he must have shown something to be able to stick around. I mean, He was a Steeler and played a little bit in '57. So Buddy Parker, who was an excellent evaluator of talent, he knows what he's got there. Then he winds up being a 49er, just kind of on the camp squad, the practice squad. But then he joins the Giants in '58. He's even in the team photo. And, of course, what's really interesting for our matchup tonight is the offensive coach of the Giants is on the other sideline,
That's
Mr.
right.
Vince Lombardi.
Yeah.
So Kemp, with as powerful of an arm as he has, and he's so smart and can read a coverage, he's excellent at rolling right and running. And we'll talk about that later in the game. He just is not very consistent with his accuracy. When you look at his numbers, completion percentage, it's substandard. But that didn't seem to keep him from making the big throws when it counted the most.
Coach, a quick question. And when you're looking at the Bills' game fills during the regular season, in what situations would head coach Lou Saban insert LaMonica in place of Jack Kemp? Any certain specific type situations that come to fore when you look at the films?
I did not capture any of that. I think sometimes it could be that maybe Jack Kemp, it had a long history of minor injuries, and of course the one major one in '62. But I think that he would put him in. He wanted LaMonica to get playing time. It could have been injury, and maybe it was just one of those games where Jack Kemp wasn't throwing the ball all that well.
Okay. All right, let's go to the Buffalo Bills receivers. Charlie Ferguson, Bo Roberson, and tight end Paul Costa. And you were talking about a missing piece with Cookie Gilchrist. They got a missing piece in the receiving corps. Deep threat Elbert Dubenion, correct?
Well, he is, without a doubt, the fastest player. I mean, there's a bunch of them in the AFL, but he is the fastest player. And he makes this excellent touchdown reception against the Jets early in the season, and you see him grimace in pain in the end zone. And his knee, he twists his leg underneath him as he makes the catch. He's out for the season.
Ouch.
And then the receiver on the other side, Glenn Bass, who's almost as fast, is out for the season. So Buffalo picks up Bo Roberson. Excellent speed, very good athlete, and he can make some catches. But he is not what we would call an elite or premier receiver. Costa is a fine rookie tight end. He can catch the ball, though I did read that he lacked confidence. And he's a superb blocker. But because he's younger, this puts veteran and a respected teammate, Ernie Warlick, on the bench. But what I saw, and we're going to talk about that in this game strategy-wise, in the championship against San Diego, Buffalo was almost entirely in double tight end. Double tight end, one wide receiver in Roberson, and then their backfield set up in the usual alignments. So for this game, I think that the strategy, and we'll, of course, go to it more in depth, I think the strategy is going to be to spread the ball out amongst all of them. But, of course, the only real deep threat is Bo Roberson.
Okay. Now let's talk about the Bills' offensive line matching up against the Green Bay Packers' defensive line. Let's go from right to left. Stu Barber versus Lionel Aldridge.
Well, that's a matchup where Buffalo can hold its own. Stu Barber has got size. He's an excellent blocker. Aldridge might be a touch quicker, but that'll be an interesting battle. Stu Barber can more than hold his own. At left guard for Buffalo, this is the matchup for me that is the most compelling aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Billy Shaw is a future Hall of Famer.
Yep.
He is the offensive team captain of Buffalo, and he can make every block. All you have to do is watch him on film and see this is the best offensive guard in the AFL. So who is he blocking? A master of technique in Henry Jordan. Well, Billy Shaw is a little bigger. So that is a matchup that I won't say favors Buffalo, but it sure does not favor Green Bay the way it did in the NFL championship game.
Okay.
The center for Buffalo, he's fine. I'm sure he'll make a valid attempt to get to Nitschke and do his other blocks. but there is no doubt he is facing a great middle linebacker. So that obviously favors Green Bay.
Okay. Now, the right guard, Albie Miller versus Ron Kostelnik.
Well, Albie Miller actually was probably better served if he'd have been the center. He's a veteran guy. He knows what he's doing, and Kostelnik is probably a little stronger. That's a fairly even matchup.
Okay. Rick Hudson versus Willie Davis.
Well, that one, there is no doubt here. That favors Green Bay. Mr. Hudson has faced some really good defensive ends. I guess the best comparison would be when Hudson has to go against Earl Faison of the Chargers. But Willie Davis is just absolutely lightning quick with great technique. Mr. Hudson will have his hands full.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about Buffalo's kicking team, kickers here. Very solid here. Pete Gogolak as the place kicker and Paul McGuire as the punter.
Well, I'm going to go in inverse order here. Paul McGuire has a fine year punting. He really does. He's a backup linebacker. He doesn't hurt the Bills when he's out there on defense, but he is an excellent, excellent punter. Mr. Gogolak, all you got to do is look at his numbers for that season. I mean, a man can just kick field goals. I mean, he is actually I won't say a savior, but he is a weapon for Buffalo because he can kick them long and he doesn't miss.
Yeah, and in that 1965 AFL Championship game against the Chargers, he got 3 clutch field goals in that game.
Absolutely. So his confidence level is okay. You send me out there, and the Hungarian is going to put him through the uprights.
I just want to add to our listeners here, Pete Gogolak, along with Garo Yepremian, was one of the first of the soccer-style kickers, in the mid-'60s there. So he and Yepremian were pioneers, with regard to soccer-style place kicking and pro football. Okay, let's go to Buffalo's kick and punt returners, Charlie Warner and Butch Bird.
Well, Charlie Warner has excellent speed. He actually is the starter at the beginning of the year. We'll talk more about that later, at left corner. He's an excellent return man. He can take it the distance, which he did during the season. That is a strength for Buffalo. And though Butch Bird does not have a lot of long punt returns, look at what he did in the championship game against San Diego. In essence, it was the turning point in the 65 title game.
Yeah. I believe it was a 74-yard return, that I think that was the game's first score, wasn't it, Coach?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Sir.
Okay, we now come to the Green Bay Packers offensive backfield. Bart Starr, Paul Hornig, and Jim Taylor against the Buffalo Bills. Take it away, Coach.
Well, I'll add in there, Tom Moore may get some playing time, but after the way Hornig and Taylor played against Cleveland, we know they are going to be the featured performers. And, of course, the quarterback is, again, a man who just understands game plans, very, very accurate, and surprisingly can throw the deep ball better than a lot of defense. Let's put it this way. Bart Starr completed enough long passes to convince defensive backs that he did have a strong enough arm to throw deep.
Okay, let's talk about the Packers receivers: Carroll Dale, Boyd Dowler, Max McGee, and Marv Fleming.
Well, we don't know how much playing time Max will get, though he can sure come off the bench. Carroll Dale is excellent and has good speed. Bill Anderson will probably be at tight end again.
Yeah.
Like I say, adequate blocker, adequate receiver if he's thrown the ball. But the X factor in this game is Boyd Dowler. This man made the all-decade team at receiver for the decade of the 60s.
Yeah.
He's a rock-solid blocker. He has very, very good speed, deep speed for a big, tall man. And because of his size, he can run every route underneath and make every catch.
Do you believe he would have size advantage against anyone in the Buffalo Bills starting defensive secondary, in your view, Coach?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. And how about Carroll Dale?
Well, if Carroll Dale is split left, he's going to go against Butch Bird. And Mr. Bird does not back down from anyone. My view, he is the best right corner in the AFL.
Okay.
And there are many historians who think he's been overlooked, and he doesn't even get a sniff for the Hall of Fame, but he was outstanding.
Okay. Now, this is the real beautiful part. Let's talk about the Packers' offensive line matchups against the Buffalo Bills' defensive interior line. We'll go left tackle Bob Skoronski versus Tom Day.
Well, that matchup would be fairly even. And after we go through these, then I'm going to make a subtle adjustment based on game film and what I believe Joel Collier will do. But let's finish going across the line there.
Left guard Fuzzy Thurston versus Tom Sestak.
Well, I'm biased because Big Sess is my favorite Buffalo Bill of all time. That man truly is one of the overlooked greats. I think if he didn't have the knee injury and he would have had any kind of health towards the late 60s, he would have been a viable candidate for the Hall of Fame. His season, the year before in 1964, ranks with the greatest ever by a defensive tackle. And I haven't watched game film. He is peerless, incredibly strong in his body, broad-shouldered, but his hand strength, Fuzzy, is as good as Fuzzy is, and he will probably try and block Big Sess on his knees, his bad knees. But this matchup does not favor Fuzzy Thurston. This is not Jim Kinnicky he's facing.
Okay, center Ken Bowman versus Harry Jacobs, Buffalo Bills middle linebacker.
Well, young Ken Bowman is a real fine center. He's going to have a long, strong career. And I'm sure that he's going to make an attempt to make the cutoff block. Harry Jacobs is a brilliant defensive play caller on the field. He's adequate in pursuit, but he's so instinctive, and he can plug any of the holes inside. So that's a fairly even matchup.
Okay. Right guard Jerry Kramer versus the big Jim Dunaway.
Well, Kramer will not back down from anybody. And, of course, he has faced big men before. But one thing about Jim Dunaway is trying to drive block that big boy is going to be a real challenge. Now, I'm not saying that Dunaway will whip him, but that's another matchup where Buffalo can more than hold its own.
Oh, the last one. This is so beautiful. Hall of Famer Forrest Gregg versus someone who ought to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Dancing Bear, Ron McDole.
I actually, when I wrote my book on 1961, Ron McDole began his career as an offensive guard for the St. Louis Football Cardinals and got some playing time. When they let him go, and he follows, he goes to Houston. He came off the bench late in the season and played very, very well for the Oilers. I mean, this man has ability. You look at that body, and you just don't think, I mean, come on now. But you don't earn the nickname Dancing Bear unless you've earned it. He was very, very, he had good feet, good technique, very smart and instinctive. Now, physical strength-wise, he is not going to overpower or overmatch Forrest Gregg. And Forrest Gregg knows every trick in the book. So I think this matchup, as you've alluded to, is going to be just a fun one because they're going to be trying to outsmart each other and do all these little dirty tricks to each other during the game.
Yeah. I mean, McDowell was so brilliant on the run contain, and also, like Andy Robustelli, he was quite the ball hawk, wasn't he, Coach?
Yeah, he has a way. I mean, he did that later for the Redskins. That's one of the things he's known, but also did it. He led the AFL one year in opponent fumble recoveries.
Yep.
The ball, wherever the ball is going, if it's not run right at the Dancing Bear, he is actually pretty damn good in pursuit. He's just one of those guys who helps you win.
Okay. Let's talk about Green Bay's kicker and punter, Don Chandler.
Well, he has obviously been the difference maker for the 65 Packers, filling both roles. And him and Paul McGuire, they're pretty evenly matched as punters. And as good a field goal kicker as Don Chandler is, I mean, look at who he's facing.
Yeah.
So, it's not that Green Bay is weak in this department. It's just it's a fine matchup for Buffalo in this area.
Okay, let's talk about Green Bay's kick and punt returners. Herb Adderley, Elijah Pitts, Willie Wood, and Tom Moore.
Well, they've all had their moments in the past, but for whatever reason, in 1965, none of them stand out. So this is an area where Buffalo has a slight advantage. They're better in the return game.
Okay, we now come to both teams' offensive game plans. So, Coach, you're in the film room with Buffalo's offensive coordinator. How do you envision what would be Buffalo's offensive game plan against the Packers defense? What side of the Green Bay Packers defense will they attack in terms of the ground game? And where do you think Kemp and Darryl Lamonic will target their passing games?
Well, as I spent some time on this, and I even came up with some numbers, though I'm sure some folks out there might dispute them. They're going to line up. I don't see Buffalo coming out of double tight end with Roberson split either side, but usually more to the left. And then their backs are going to be factored in the passing game. I have Buffalo running the ball 22 times for 78 yards.
Ooh.
They did not have a great ground attack. A few games, solid, but they are not prolific on the ground. They just don't make mistakes. And then passing-wise, I have LaMonica and Kemp completing 11 of 24 for 155 yards and throwing one interception. So the total yards on offense for Buffalo is 233 yards. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but they're facing an outstanding Green Bay defense. But that's really not too much underneath the Buffalo average for the season. What they did well is when they had opportunities, they usually cashed them in.
Okay. Now we come to the Buffalo Bills defensive game plan. We're in the film room with defensive coordinator Joe Collier. How do you envision them trying to contain Green Bay's vaunted ground game? How do they defend against the pass? How do you think he's going to use his linebackers of John Tracy, Harry Jacobs, and Mike Stratton? And also, what type of alignments do you think he's going to use? Do you think he'll use odd man alignments? And what type of red dog stunts and blitz packages would he use?
There's going to be times where he's in there pretty standard 4-3. But I just envision Collier coming out to give Green Bay's offensive line something new to block. And they ran it so much in the championship game at a different time. They played in one game during the season against the Oilers. They were virtually in a 3-4 the entire game. Everybody always talks about the 3-4 in the 70s. How about a 3-4 in 1965?
Yeah.
And Collier is a master at running it, and he has the people to do it, which will kind of take me to, as we're doing this, the secondary. Jacobs is the mastermind, excellent defensive play caller. And Mike Stratton, of course, is probably at his peak. I mean, he's got the size, the speed, and he can defend anything at the right linebacker. So I see Green Bay, when we get to them, more running to the right to attack John Tracy. Not that they won't try both sides, but you're going to see Buffalo in their 3-4. And when they do this, then you have Skoronski at left offensive tackle for Green Bay. Now, Big Sess is moved to defensive end. And again, Skoronski is not going to be used to facing someone that is that physically strong. Now, that puts Dunaway on the center. Well, Ken Bowman will get help, of course, from either Thurston or Kramer, depending on the running play. But just the size of Dunaway and his strength, Ken Bowman will have his hands full. And then that, of course, takes us back to what we already have. We have the Dancing Bears still on Forrest Gray. That's not going to change the entire game. But Day plays now. Day goes to right outside linebacker, and Stratton will be aligned over Fuzzy Thurston. when they go to this. And you asked about stunts. The one I do see the most is I could see Buffalo being in their 4-3 and running what we call the tackle twist, where Dunaway would go first and Sestak would loop around and come around to the opposite A-gap. And then as they're doing that, Harry Jacobs would come rocketing through the opposite side B-gap. So they would try and bring pressure on Starr right in his face if they could do it. And the other part is, and you see it on film, and George Sames, there is, and I'm going to go to it now, there is no comparison between those Buffalo Bills defensive backs playing the run and the abysmal performance that we detailed last week of the Cleveland Browns in the running game.
Okay.
Butch Bird, it can play the wide run. So when Green Bay runs their sweep, there's going to be a good-sized right corner out there who can play the run. Now, Edgerson at left corner, he's solid. He will come up. The X factor in this, even though he doesn't have he becomes a starter during this year, is Haygood Clark. And teams tested him, and usually they discovered that Mr. Clark was a very, very fine football player.
Wow.
And finally is an all-decade. I mean, when you're one of the two safeties on the AFL all-decade team,
wow.
I mean, George Sames, in one game in his career, had 4 sacks.
Wow.
Name another safety that did that. I mean, Collier knew when to send him, and Sames, as small as he was a fearless tackler and very good on, we'll call it since it's 1965, on the Red Dog. Okay. So I think Mr. Collier, since it's a championship and he knows what he's going against, he has to try and disrupt. Shall I use that term?
Yeah.
Matthew, try and disrupt Green Bay's flow here.
Okay.
But that's not going to change, and I'm going to go to the numbers. That's not going to change. Green Bay is not going to run the ball 47 times for 204 yards against Buffalo.
Yeah.
I broke it down that they would run the ball 36 times for 132 yards.
Okay. Now, what type of coverages would Joe Carr use against Bart Starr? I mean, would he be using a lot of zones or, man? How do you envision it, Coach, your coverages?
Almost all pure man. It's going to be pure man. The problem will be, now let's say that Dowler is flanker right. Then Collier has to make a decision. Does he do a form of roll coverage to Dowler where Haygood Clark is actually helping Edgerson double Dowler? And if they do it to the right, that Buffalo has a decided advantage there with all-league Butch Bird and all-league George Sames. Carroll Dale will face tough competition there.
Okay.
So it will be man, but they will try. Collier will try, and he'll use some zone. I mean, that is, to me, the strategical aspect of this. You have two of the all-time best defensive coordinators matched up in this game.
Yeah.
And Phil Benston for Green Bay and Joel Collier with Buffalo.
Okay. Now we come to the Green Bay defensive game plan. We're in the room with Phil Benston. How do you think he's going to use his linebackers, Nitschke, Leroy Caffey, and Dave Robinson, to contain Buffalo's ground game? What type of coverages he's going to use to stop Kemp and Darryl Lamonica in terms of the secondary of Jeter, Brown, Adderley, and Wood? And also, do you think he might use any type of, because in Super Bowl I against the Chiefs, in the second half he used blitzes and stunts and red dogs. Do you think he might do the same thing against the Bills in Super Bowl F, use any type of blitzes, or no?
Yes. Yeah, there'll be some red dog. He'll use it, I won't say sparingly. It'll just depend on the flow of the game. If they're behind or they need a play, they might be more prone to do it. Otherwise, you're going to see Green Bay in their standard operating procedure. They do not, Bankston does not, by this time there is no variation in what they do. They're going to play man coverage. The one strength now is, because Doug Hart had injured his foot and was taken out of the game against Cleveland, and Bob Jeter played so well, and he's faster than Doug Hart, Green Bay has a starting right corner now, and Bob Jeter coming off an unsung game and an outstanding game against Cleveland. So, when he faces up against Roberson, he'll be tested deep, but he has the wheels to stay with him. But Green Bay will be almost always in there, man coverage, but yes, they will do zone. And, of course, the other part is by having just a lone tight end to the right, Herb Adderley is a corner to a tight end side. In other words, it takes away one of Green Bay's strengths, which means, and we'll talk, and I'll go to this later in our discussion, that puts more emphasis on Willie Wood and his performance. He has to really step up.
Okay. Now, the Green Bay's offensive game plan. Vince Lombardi's looking at those films of that mighty Buffalo Bills defense. Where do you think he's going to attack the Bills on the ground? And where do you think Bart Starr will target the passing attack? And what sort of a passing attack? How does Vince Lombardi decode the Buffalo Bills defense?
There will be absolutely no adjustment. I mean, this is his strength. This is a man who has this legendary career of running the power sweep and the fullback slant. Why would he change that? The difference is the 8-yard runs against Cleveland are now 3-yard runs against Buffalo. Mm-hmm. So he will not. Bart Starr is going to call running plays, and of course he's going to mix in the pass, as I mentioned. Now Green Bay might throw a little more. I have Bart Starr is completing 11 out of 20 for 188 yards. And again, we're going to run the ball 36 times for 132 yards. So they're going to gain 320. Now, that's a little less than their average and a little more than Buffalo usually gives up. But because of how Buffalo plays, it is going to be a real challenge. Green Bay is not going to have one of those 90-yard drives down the field. Buffalo just doesn't allow that.
Yeah. Okay. Coach, it's game time. Now, the last couple years when we were doing mythical Super Bowls, the first time when we did the one, the Chargers versus the Bears, we had it at the Orange Bowl in Miami. Last year, the Bills versus the Cleveland Browns, you had it at Tulane State in New Orleans. Are we going to use the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum this time, or perhaps the Rose Bowl in Pasadena? Where do we go?
Let's go to Pasadena. Let's go to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right.
Let's have all the Packer fans go out there in the sunshine in a place that holds, I'm not sure what it held in those days, but a minimum of 90, maybe near 100,000 folks. So let's go to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena in the sunshine.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, Coach, run that mythical game film. How is the first half of Super Bowl F unfolding? Take it away.
Well, I have it written in my notes. Turnovers, punting, field position, and field goals made. When Green Bay makes a mistake, and I can just see Starr trying to go to Dowler, and on a roll coverage, Haygood Clark being tested, makes the lone interception for Buffalo.
Wow.
And they move the ball down. They can't get to the end zone, but they're on the Green Bay side of the field, and Mr. Gogolak splits the uprights. Then I see both teams punting the ball. I mean, this is going to be, but then there's going to be the turnovers. I mean, these are two teams that both ranked right at the top in opponent fumble recoveries. Green Bay recovered 20 fumbles in 11 wins and a tie, and 3 in their 3 losses. And they lost only 12 all season.
Wow.
And the Packers recorded 28 interceptions in their 11 wins and a tie, and 4 in the 3 losses. So, right away, what are we looking at here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Green Bay is going to be hard-pressed, but that's still their goal, is to take the ball away. Because 48 takeaways? I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So Jack Kemp has to be mindful of that. But there's eventually going to be a time he forces a throw, and I believe in this game, and it'll be the key play in the second half, much like in the Super Bowl the next year, and we talked, and you did a masterful job of talking about it against Cleveland. Willie Wood will be in the right place at the right time, and he'll get the lone interception for Green Bay.
Okay.
But I also have in here, I've got notes down that with that double twist stunt, Sestak breaks through and nails Bart Starr, and he fumbles the ball, and there he is. The dancing bear gets past Forrest Gregg, and he gets the fumble recovery.
All right. Beautiful.
But at the same time, whether it be Billy Joe or Ray Carlton or even Willie Davis on a pass rush, there is going to be a Buffalo fumble and Green Bay will recover. So I have the turnovers at 2 apiece. Both teams lose a fumble. Both teams throw an interception. So it all is going to come down to field position and punting. The difference, I believe, in this game is the all-decade performer, as I mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
When Starr needs to, he is going to go to Boyd Dowler.
Okay.
Booker Edgerson is a rock-solid corner, but he is not faced, other than Lance Allworth, he is not faced a receiver of this caliber.
Okay. Now on offense, is that Green Bay executing the power sweep effectively? Are they getting any type of penetration?
Well, when they run their sweep, of course, instead of, as we talked, and again, you did such a fine job on the Horning 13-yard touchdown. I mean, it's like you draw it up on the chalkboard. That's just not going to happen against Buffalo. I can see Horning weaving his way on the power sweep and getting to the outside, and instead of gaining 13, he might get 5, and then there's a whole host of Buffalo Bills defenders going, nobody runs the ball on us, and they gang tackle him. So it's going to be a lot. The clock is going to continue to tick, and both teams are going to attempt to run the ball, but they're just not going to get a lot of yardage. And I have the score at halftime of Green Bay will have scored 10, and Buffalo will have scored 10.
Ooh.
I have a 10-10 tie at halftime.
Okay, who scores the Buffalo touchdown? Because you accounted for a Pete Gogolak field goal. Who scores the Buffalo touchdown? How did it come about?
Well, after the Dancing Bear recovered the fumble, they maneuvered the ball down the field, and when they got inside the red zone and they're inside the 10, Jack Kemp was just a master at the rollout right. And he gets out there, and we get the solid block from whoever is tight end right for Buffalo, whether it be Costa or Warlick, and he's occupying, dealing with Adderley and Dave Robinson, and it's just a matter, can Kemp get inside the flag, and that's what I have. Jack Kemp scores the Buffalo touchdown on a roll right, diving and hitting the little magic marker there in the corner. We didn't have pylons in those days. It got the wire with the flag on it.
Right. Now, who scores the Green Bay touchdown, and how long is Don Chandler's field goal?
Well, Don Chandler, I'm sure it's going to, the old 35-yarder. But in the second half, Buffalo, every time they get field position and they get stalled, Mr. Gogolak puts them through.
Okay.
So he gives them the lead on his second field goal. Buffalo was ahead 13-10, and Bart Starr, as he's masterful at doing, is going to play action pass and hit Boyd Dowler on the deep post for the winning score.
Ooh, okay. Now, we talked about that. That was Bart Starr's one of his big things. On 3rd and short, he loved to do that fake plunge and then go either to McGee or to someone. So you figured that's what he's going to do, fake a plunge to either Hornigan Taylor and hit Dowler deep?
Absolutely. And they're going to go to the right side. They have to. They would not take a chance on doing this towards Sestak. So they would run it right over right guard. Why not fake the running play over right guard, over Jerry Kramer, and then he pulls the ball out on his right side, and Dowler is flanked right, and he runs one of his classic post patterns, and Brian Bartlett's start puts it right on his numbers.
Okay. Now, well, you kind of anticipate a little bit here. Now, at the start of the second half, do you think Vince would have made any type of offensive adjustments in the second half? Anything like that at all? No, just stick to the plan. How do you envision Vince?
Well, I see him sticking to the plan. He just keeps thinking, we're going to wear down Buffalo just like we did Cleveland. The difference is those Buffalo Bills defenders, there is no wearing them down. You do not go that many games without allowing a rushing touchdown and give up that few yards rushing in a game.
Okay.
Week in and week out. So it's not that Green Bay is going to pull back and all of a sudden go with 4 wide and throw the ball 50 times. They're going to continue to do what they do. They're just much shorter yards. Now, I think Green Bay might have time of possession in their favor, but how many points are you going to get out of this? Yeah. Buffalo's defense, and I'll use the magic R word, they are resilient.
Okay. Now, does Phil Bankston make any defensive adjustments in the second half against the Bills' offense? Any type of tinkering, anything of that nature?
Only, like I say, much like what we saw happen with Kansas City and what happened in Cleveland. He is going to leave the adjustment in the secondary to Willie Wood, and Wood's going to have to make a play.
Okay.
And as he did so many times, the future Hall of Famer will be in the right place at the right time, and all 5'10" of them. Isn't it interesting that the two safeties, I'm going to say George Sames is 5'10", though he sure looks shorter than that on the field.
Yeah.
These are not the tallest free safeties in the world, but boy, oh boy, both of them, they're the two best tackling free safeties in their respective leagues.
Okay. Now, what about Buffalo? Do you think Lou Saban makes any offensive adjustments in the second half, or does Joe Collier make any defensive adjustments in the second half?
I think that he may blitz a little more, but I think he believes in his guys that have been so strong at not letting teams drive down the field, so it's going to come down to defending the pass. So he may red dog a little more, but it will not be something where he's doing it every down.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about that game-breaking play where Bart Starr hits Boyd Dowler on that play action pass, does that Bill defender against Dowler make a mistake? Does he slip and fall, or is it just Dowler just blows right past him?
Well, he's just taller and faster.
Okay.
And of course he's open. And the big question is, Dale on the other side has got to run a route where he can occupy George Sames. So Sames will be late getting over to help him, and Starr masterfully throws the ball over. He's not going to get burnt by Haygood Clark twice.
Yeah.
So this one, he gets it over his head, and Mr. Dowler latches onto the ball, and away he goes to the promised land.
Now, you talked earlier about Tom Sestak getting a sack on Bart Starr. Did the Packers get any sacks at all on Kemp or Darryl LaMonica in the second half?
Absolutely. I think it's almost going to be even. I listed it as each team gets 2.
Okay.
2 takeaways apiece, 2 sacks. I can't imagine Willie Davis going an entire game without not getting to the quarterback.
Okay.
Again, Hudson's a fine right offensive tackle, but he's facing a defensive end that is, a future Hall of Famer. And the other one could be on a stunt. It could be a type of pop stunt where the defensive end shoots outside and Leroy Caffey on the other side comes through the C gap between the tackle and the tight end.
Okay. So, Coach, what is the absolute final score in Super Bowl F?
The final is, with Dollar's touchdown, is 17-13.
Wow. Okay. Very tight. Beautiful, though. Coach, who is Super Bowl F MVP?
Well, I'm going to go with the guy from the University of Colorado. I'm going to go with Boyd Dowler.
Okay. In your opinion, who is the unsung hero of Super Bowl F?
Well, there could be many, but I really believe it's going to be Willie Davis. I think that he will force Buffalo, as the game goes on. Jack Kemp will try and attack much more away from Willie Davis and attack Lionel Aldrich's side of the field.
Oh, a question I forgot to ask a couple minutes ago. Do you see at the closing of Buffalo's last possession of the game, do you see Lou Saban using LaMonica for the final drive to try to win the game? Do you see that happening with LaMonica?
That is outstanding, Matthew. Absolutely. The Mad Bomber, of course, he doesn't have that nickname yet. He will come in. Not that Kemp can't throw it long, but yes, I could see them coming in. They could actually try some kind of a flea flicker type where they hand the ball to Billy Joe and he heads towards the line and he turns and pitches it back to LaMonica and he throws deep to Bo Roberson, that type of deal. And it's just Jeter and Wood running over there and defending the pass. Yes, they are going to attack and throw deep. And as I said, 11 completions for 155 yards. That's decent.
Yeah.
I think Bo Roberson is going to get at least one fairly long catch in the game, and the rest are going to be spread out. Either Costa and Warlick. Warlick in the game against San Diego, where they beat him, he had 3 catches in the game. I'm not sure how many catches, if he even thought. I bet he thought, wow, what are they calling in here? But the old veteran, he could sure catch the ball. So I can see Buffalo with their double tight ends running crossing routes and trying to find open areas behind the Packer linebackers.
When the final gun sounds, do you see a lot of Buffalo Bills shaking the hands of the Packers because they earn a lot of respect? They earned a lot of respect from the Packers. In other words, Green Bay really, they knew this was a real football game. Do you see a lot of mutual handshaking, like McDowell shaking Forrest Gregg's hand, and in other words, this was a real football match. This wasn't a laugher.
Absolutely. These are two teams of ultimate class.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, your final thoughts on Super Bowl F?
Well, since Lombardi lost that game in 1960, his record speaks for itself.
Yep.
He never lost another one.
Yep.
So I can't tarnish the silver trophy that's named after him. So, and Green Bay does have. I mean, look at the Hall of Famers on this team.
Yeah.
It's just, as we talked last week, it's not that the Cleveland Brown defense couldn't play. They were a solid unit, but they just were not physical. For this game, Green Bay goes against a team. I mean, walk up to a Buffalo Bill. Can you imagine walking up to Tom Sestak and saying, "Have you ever played physical against an offensive lineman?" He wouldn't even respond. He would just stare holes through you.
Yeah, yeah. But I can envision in the locker rooms when the reporters and cameras going up to Lombardi asking him his impressions. Do you think the AFL teams measure up? Could you picture Vince showing basically surprise, and he was decently impressed with the Bills, their performance and all that? You could see him doing that.
Yes, I sure can. He would be respectful much more than he was against Kansas City.
Yeah, yeah.
When we see in the first Super Bowl, at the end of that game, that was not what it was intended to be.
Yeah, yeah. But we'll talk about that next year, right, Coach?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's that game. I'll try and whet the listeners' appetites because of two Chiefs players that absolutely struggled so bad in that Super Bowl against Green Bay.
Yeah.
Hank Stram, who again was masterful at evaluating talent, he knew he immediately had to make changes at those two positions.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll say. We'll leave that for next year.
Absolutely. And later this year in September, early September, Coach, we're going to talk about 1966 Los Angeles Rams with our dear departed old friend George Allen, his first season and as an NFL head coach. We're going to have so much fun with that. And then, of course, close to New Year's Eve later this year, the 1966 NFL championship game, Green Bay versus Dallas. So it's going to be a fun year, isn't it, Coach?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Matthew.
You take care. You have a wonderful night at 2026, okay, Coach?
The same to you, Matthew. Continued success to you.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Ms. Tammy McDowell, who's the daughter of Ron McDowell, the dancing bear. This one's for you, Tammy, okay? Hope you and your father have a wonderful and peaceful new year. We love you all, and hopefully your father gets inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Amen. Okay. Bye-bye, Coach.
Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for next week's show, where I'll be interviewing British author Philip Watling. Thank you and good night.